Good evening and welcome to Bronx Talk. Through the continued work of the BLAC Subcommittee of the BLAC, Black, Latino, and Asian Caucus of the City Council, in conjunction with various state task forces, two elected officials, in conjunction with their colleagues, have developed the BLAC Print, a comprehensive and forward-thinking roadmap for uplifting Black communities and building a city that works for all of us. Tonight's guests are two of the officers of the BLAC, and they're here to present their agenda for the BLAC Print and their advocacy for health, wealth, and civic engagement. Please join me in welcoming back to Bronx Talk the co-chair of the BLAC, Bronx Councilmember Kevin Riley. Nice to have you with us.
Nice to be here,
Thanks
Gary.
for joining us. And the Secretary of the BLAC, Councilmember Althea Stevens. Nice to have you with us.
Absolutely, happy to be here.
Thanks for coming back to Bronx Talk. Councilmember Riley, let's just start. The BLAC Print. What is it? Why did all these people get together in both the council and the state legislature to put together this roadmap?
Well, I'll talk about the introduction of the BLAC Subcommittee Caucus, and I want Councilmember Stevens to really dive in on the BLAC Print, because the BLAC Print was a plan put together by Councilmember Stevens and Assemblymember Chantel Jackson. As the BLAC...
For note, Bronx elected officials.
Bronx elected official, yes.
I just wanted to give credit where credit is.
Yeah, you know, the Bronx is really looking out for our everyday New Yorkers, and as the co-chair of the Black, Latino, Asian Caucus, the largest caucus in City Council, we do understand we represent Black, Latino, Asian people, and we wanted to create subcommittees for these specific entities within the caucus. And the BLAC Subcommittee under the caucus, which is chaired by Councilmember Stevens, we wanted to put together an agenda that's focused on how we could uplift Black communities within New York State and New York City. So we know each and every day we go through our budget dance with the state, we go through our budget dance with the city, but in order to really push transformative legislation and transformative budget initiatives, we have to make sure that we're partnering with different levels of government. So Councilmember Stevens came to the caucus and she's like, hey, I want to put together a BLAC Print, and she had a great partner with her neighboring assembly member, Chantel Jackson, who's a tremendous leader in the state, and they put together a BLAC Print, and we went to Albany in January to do a lobby day to focus on three initiatives. We wanted to focus on health, wealth, and civic engagement.
The easiest question is a three-letter word. Why? Why was this? Why is this necessary? So I'm just going to ask it. Why?
You look at the disparities with health, wealth, and civic engagement within the Black community. It's something that's very detrimental to the upbringing of us. You look at the health disparities in the Bronx, 62 out of 62 in the counties. We wanted to make sure that we're pushing the initiative from Bronx elected officials to see how we could focus on improving the health within Black people. And then when you look at wealth is something that we talk about, how can we increase the wealth within the Black community as well. So you look at home ownership, you look at opportunities of economic empowerment, and then you look at civic engagement. Councilmember Stevens and myself, we've had races in the Bronx. We have a race this year, but when you think about the engagement of people actually coming out and participating, but outside of just voting, how many people are showing up and participating in the civic process? And we're trying to figure out creative, innovative ways to do so. And I believe that Councilmember Stevens and Assemblymember Chantel Jackson came up with this tremendous plan, and that's why we wanted to make sure we execute it.
You know, I focused on, I just thought of history when you talked about building wealth. It was one of the things that Martin Luther King made very clear, that we can talk about equality, we can talk about all the other civic things and social things, but it was building the wealth that would empower people to do better. The BLAC Print, what is it, where is it, and the why we pretty much have gotten, but talk about it, explain to the viewers what it's about.
Yeah, I mean, we did talk about the why, but I just want to go a little bit deeper into the why too, because this was really about how do we make sure that all New Yorkers feel represented? And one of the things one of my colleagues always says, Councilmember Hudson, when Black Americans or Black New Yorkers are thriving, everyone thrives, because we often are pushing forward the agenda of so many other minority groups. And so I want to just be clear that the BLAC Print is about how do we move New York forward, because when when Black people are winning and we're thriving, other people are also winning and thriving. And so, although we are calling it the Black Print, this actually encompasses everyone in New York City, because the things that we're fighting for and the things that we want to see actually will benefit everyone. And so, yes, the focus is around health, wealth, and civic engagement, but it's also under the umbrella of education, because we want to make sure that as we are rolling these things out, how are we educating young people, how are we educating community, and how are we making sure that these are tangible things that can have a long-lasting effect. And so when you think about, so often folks are saying, we didn't get anything when Obama was in office, or we have all this Black leadership and nothing is happening. And my response is always, well, what do we ask for? And so we wanted to put together a plan that was concrete steps on like what we're asking for, what we need, and what our expectations is. So the Black Print that we currently did started around, really looking at the legislative process and budget needs and access. So one of the things I found when I got into City Council, we have no initiatives that support Black organizations. And then when you look at like the disparities around Black leadership and Black-led organizations, they're there. And so how are we supporting that?
So was it a hard sell? I realize for you and frankly other Black leaders, I'm sure it wasn't that difficult. But was it a hard sell to get others, or is it still a hard sell?
Organizing.
Boy, she took a deep breath. I think I got my answer.
Because it is one of the things that has been, it's not a hard sell, but it is a lot of work. We have, in the subcommittee, the state and city elected officials, myself, Assemblymember Jackson, Councilmember Williams, Councilmember Nurse, Hudson, we all meet every Friday to kind of like work on this document, because it's been something that we really want to get done and to be able to have. And so it has been a lot to get everyone on the same page, especially elected officials.
We'll talk about some of the budget specifics in just a moment. I have to ask this question, and I've asked it, and frankly, the borough president, who happened to stop by earlier, was here, and I asked her the same thing. These items that you're talking about, the concept that you're talking about, flies directly in the face of what we're hearing from the White House. There's no question about it, and if this were to come up on his desk, what the president would say about it. My sense, from having sat in this seat for a very long time, is every single guest that I've had on this program, and now we're up, this is show like 1491 or something, whether they be in business, whether they be in housing, whether they be in healthcare, whether they be elected officials, the subtext of every conversation I've had has been about empowering people of color and the wide diversity of the Bronx, which we celebrate. Are you concerned about this? What if it comes up somewhere in Washington? Do you back down?
I hope it does.
How do you play? Oh, that's go ahead.
I do.
And then you're next. You both have to answer this.
I mean, listen, I hope it does, because the reality is we're not going anywhere. And the work that we're doing, we're going to stand on it, because the reality is we have to hold people accountable. And we are here. We're part of the American history. We're going to continue to make history. And it doesn't matter what policies you put in place. It is not going to stop the greatness of the work that we're going to continue to do.
Your thought about that?
My concern comes from our community being really disengaged with what's going on with politics right now. From the election that took place, last year, to what's going on with local elections here today, I feel like the disengagement that's coming from our community is feeling that a lot of them have distrust within the political process. And I believe we are creating different pathways for them to actually be more civically engaged, state what they want. Because as Councilmember Stevens stated, everyone always talks about when President Obama was in office and stay in the fact or stay in their opinion that they believe he did not produce as much for Black people. But then kind of figuring out how can we organize amongst each other. And when you kind of look at the leadership in New York City and New York State, there's a lot of Black leadership in New York City and New York State.
Two are sitting right here, and the borough president.
You got the borough president, you have two of us right here. The mayor,
the attorney general,
the majority leader, council speaker. So you have a lot of Black leadership. And when we look back, what are we going to say that we accomplished? And I believe formulating this Black print actually gives us a blueprint that we can kind of say, hey, this is what we advocated for, and this is what we were able to accomplish while we were in these roles.
I like by the way, I just like the use of the words that it is, I hadn't thought of it, I should have, that it's a blueprint,
Yeah.
but you call it the black print.
black print.
But it's the black print. But I was gonna just add it's also a living, breathing document, right? Like this isn't something that I want to just live with me, right? We've been going around, we've been talking to community groups, we've been talking to other stakeholders because we want input and we want to be able to say, what else should we be adding? What should we be taking away? And making sure that we're getting feedback, and also does not just live with elected officials, right? I think as a leader, we are supposed to lead, but we're also supposed to create opportunities for other people to also be a part of this process.
I want to just throw out some of the numbers. This is the health budget ask, which is in your documents. $4 million toward organizations that conduct prostate, breast, and colon cancer screenings. $5 million for education and research on fibroids. $5 million toward sickle cell centers. $26 million to promote efforts to end gun violence. $8 million funding to reduce black suicide rates. That alone.
Yeah.
How hard a sell is that? You both are involved in the budget process. Of course, these same concepts will have to be delivered to the state. How do you get that to happen? Where does the money come from? You know, you all know, you both know that. We'll start with you.
I don't think these are hard sells, because when you're talking about prostate cancer, when you're talking about suicide rates, I think these are priorities that all elected officials across New York State are prioritizing. But any budget is, when you're doing a budget, you have to figure out what are the most dire needs and what are things that you could address later on. A lot of these things we have to address now. Because when we're looking at our communities, when we're looking at the prostate rate, which is increasing, when we're looking at suicide rates, which are increasing, especially after the COVID-19 pandemic, we need to make sure that we're prioritizing resources within our communities to kind of combat that.
So this is a way, it's almost like a new way of looking at the budget process and a new way of looking at how to solve problems. That's what I'm hearing. Is you've created a different sort of framework.
Because every year we're talking about the budget. We don't have enough money for this. We're trying to figure out new creative ways to bring in revenue. But Councilmember Stevens has been very adamant since she's came into office, like, all right, we have money here. How are we making sure that we're spending it efficiently?
So then the same question for you, and budgetarily, and that's why I asked how hard a sell is it? This is a way of advocating for all these things, and that was only health, because there's wealth budgets and civic engagement and all that kind of stuff.
But just even so, one, I want to say a lot of these numbers are a drop in the bucket when we're thinking about the state budget overall. And so I
didn't mean to giggle, but yes, I did.
Because when you think about it, like we're not
billions of dollars.
Yeah, it's billions of dollars, and we're looking at, and this is the state budget, and this is what we went to the governor to ask for. And honestly, they were actually really receptive to a lot of the things we presented.
That's good to
and
know.
we were aligned on a lot of the initiatives that they were thinking about doing and they were working on, and really looking forward to partner with us. And so I think sometimes we hear these numbers and we're like, this is a lot, but this is statewide advocacy to get like prostate screenings and sickle cell centers throughout the state.
And if you were to just bring it up without this during the budget season, people would say, oh, okay, maybe they checked the box, or they'd say, well, you know, we can't really do that this time. But because it's, I'm just teaching myself this, because it's part of this process, you think it'll have a stronger advocacy?
Absolutely, because it's showing unity between all of the black electeds at city and state level, which has not been done before, where we're all coming together to say, this is what we're all prioritizing, we all are supporting this, and this is what we want to see done.
Let's talk about youth. Coincidentally or not, both of you really have made strong commitments to youth.
I'm the chair of Children and Youth.
There you go. On February 27th, the City Council passed legislation that was introduced by you to revamp the Advisory Youth Board within the Department of Youth Community Development, DYCD. I thought that was a really interesting concept. We've had high school students in here over the years, and even college students, who say, well, you know, we feel disengaged and all that. Just talk about that legislation in the context of this whole black print thing.
Well, I mean,
even though it may not be directly one of the agendas, but it resonated.
But it is, because it's the civic engagement piece, right? So when I ran for office, and I've told the story hundreds of times, young people are the people who told me that they wanted me to run because they did not feel like they were a part of the process, or government did not have an effect on them. And so it's our jobs to figure out, how do we get young people involved. We have so many spaces where we're talking about programming for young people and, you know, legislation that's going to affect their everyday lives, and they don't have a say on it. DYCD basically funds 85% of the contracts in New York City, but we have a board where it was just adults. Maybe a young person will come once in a while, but this is really going to affect how programs are ran,
So
where they're going to be.
You would then take high school students?
It
For
does.
example?
16. You only have to be 16 to be on the youth board
Wow.
now, so that they can be a part of the conversation.
Maybe not
and
a
shaping.
voting member, but at least have.
No, they're a voting
They
member.
would be voting members. Wow.
Absolutely.
Very impressive.
Start them with the civic process early.
Yeah.
You love the idea.
Yeah, I love it. I love it.
You, let's see, support the Northeast Bronx YMCA Team Basketball League and all kinds of youth programs and
Yes.
conversations. Do these programs work? Do you see the results? And I remember Rudy Giuliani, when he was mayor, he made the big statement, midnight basketball doesn't work. This would fly in the face of what you work on every day.
I think
really.
it's deeper than basketball. It's deeper than the recreation program. It's just giving the space for the youth to grow in a safe space. And I think that's what a lot of youth feel like they didn't have within their communities. At the YMCA, a lot of people look at my social media. I'm always there. I'm always engaging with the young people. But it's an intergenerational connecting place where you have older adults, you have millennials like myself, and you have the younger teens there who are all in a safe space together that looks very beautiful at the same time. So these team programs, we're doing swim programs there. We're teaching second grade swim there. And now we're trying to go into different things. The youth came to us and said they want to do fashion program. So we're now trying to figure out how we can put a fashion program at the YMCA now. So as Councilmember Stevens stated before, having the youth advisory board and having youth on it, you have to kind of listen to the youth to see exactly what they want. I think our perception of a community center was always putting a pool table in there, maybe some TVs. The youth want to do something with technology now. They want to be able to engage with each other. They want to be able to record things, play games there. Like, these are different things that they want to do, but you won't know that if you don't listen to them.
I have to just interject this anecdote, which I happen to know about the YMCA in that part of the Bronx. I took then Assemblymember Carl Hasty through the Marshall Montefiore Community Center for the first time before this ever came up. And as we walked out of the building, he said to me, I'm going to put a YMCA in my area. And then years later, when it happened, I remember that he and I took that. So I was part of that effort.
It took two decades.
I know. That's how long I've been doing this. But let's move that to crime and guns and how the Black print addresses these things and how the community conversations that you do and all those other things. Talk about strengthening the fight against having kids, especially, pick up a gun.
I mean, it's a huge fight that we're going to continue fighting, unfortunately, unless the federal government does something with our gun regulations. But I do believe that within our communities, we have to invest in more programs with our youth. We have to invest in more intervention. Youth are always going to have conflicts, just like how adults have conflicts. How do we make sure that we're providing them with the right resources to address those conflicts in a positive manner? I think that's important. And programs like the YMCA is a good program in the community, but also we have crisis management groups that work very diligently within our community, and a part of the Black print was advocating for more funding for resources for these groups. So kind of combating and preventing these things from happening. I think a lot of people, when they think about public safety, they're always like, hey, we need more police officers, we need more police officers. Yes, we do want to work with the police. We're not saying that we don't want to, but that's a response to something after it happens. I believe what we're trying to do is be more preventative.
Do you want to comment on some of the things you do or what the Black print does to address this?
Yeah, because I know we talked a lot about the budget, but even in the Black print, part of it is also thinking about we're in a mayoral election and what do we expect the next mayor to come in and do? And one of the demands that we're asking is for them to really work with the council to create a decarceration plan. So most people don't know. For juvenile justice.
You know, I saw that on some of the notes I was given, and I want to put that out. Think of the word decarceration. I think that's a good word for us to really focus on. Go ahead.
So now, because I'm the chair of children and youth, and now I have oversight over ACS, I now get to see the program that we have, but we're still having high numbers of young people being in secure detention centers. And so it's thinking about, are the programs that we have available to young people, are they working? Is this what they want to do? Because whatever we're doing is still leading young people to end up in jail. In the last 3 years, the numbers have tripled.
I want to answer that question. Do you have a concern about that they may not be working?
Yes, I'm very concerned because the numbers in our juvenile detentions have tripled. So we were at 150 when I started. We are over 300, and one of our secure detentions is expanding because young people do not have space.
Fascinates me. What is not working?
The programs, because the young people are not attending, they're not going, and they're getting in trouble. And so when we're thinking about,
they're missing the mark.
we have after school programs, we have all these different programs, and young people are saying clearly what they want. They want jobs. And so another thing we're asking and demanding is saying we need to reimagine what workforce looks like for young people.
I was just going to say workforce, workforce development.
Yeah. When I was young, I worked at Summer Youth. I did the library, but the library was able to hire me throughout the year. So I used to go to school, and then after school, I would go to the library for 2 hours, which was giving me an opportunity to
I didn't realize
make some
you were
money,
a success story from this.
Summer Youth? That was my first job.
But that's what it is, right? How are we making sure we're investing in programs like not just SYP, because that's only in the summer.
Yep.
How are we investing in things like Work, Learn, Grow, which is a year-long program where young people who are in SYP could apply for that, and having LCW programs in school and work-ready programs so young people have the option to work and make money and really listen and respond to what they want.
I think about how so many things are communication problems. And I know that there are advisory boards. Councilmember Stevens, you have health and wellness, tenants, block and neighborhood, youth, seniors, multicultural, public safety, etc. Let's just talk about adults. The Black Print talks about expanding technology and innovation. There are adults who don't have access or don't have knowledge because they grew up when it didn't happen. So talk a little bit about just the whole vision of what adults need through this Black Print.
Well, yeah, I think so. One of the big things when we're talking about the Black Print is we talk about home ownership, and we're talking about like access to different programs in those neighborhoods, and thinking about when we're developing what are the economic things that we need to be bringing into the community. And so if we are bringing in more housing and all these things, how are we also supplementing that with other things like community centers, playhouses, or whatever else is needed. And so those are the things that we're really trying to promote in the community to ensure that it is addressing the whole person and not just saying that we're going to have them live here.
There's a lot of disenfranchisement, I believe, with adults because they feel like they work so hard, they're trying, I mean, we know what the pressures are, so that undoubtedly can really help. Let's talk about housing and the real affordable housing. I have suggested a number of times that we eliminate the word affordable.
Yeah, we should.
Could just call it a number. This is what the rent is, and because talk
affordable
about,
is so broad now.
So broad.
But just talk about what kinds of efforts need to be done to, the city of Yes. I mean,
the city of Yes was a proposal by the mayor to put over 115 units of housing, but I think we scaled it down to 82,000. It's going to put a dent into it, and the city council came out with our own housing framework, which our dear speaker, Madam Speaker Adrienne Adams, came up with that initiative. And I think that's the kind of framework that we need. We need neighborhood planning. When we have the neighborhood come together, figure out a creative way to increase housing, which is something that I'm doing in my district from the city of Yes, where I have a neighborhood plan that's coming through my community, where the community feels like they have a say-so on how they want their community to be developed, whether it goes with, traffic mitigations, whether it goes with public open space, and what kind of affordable housing are we putting within our community, and also how are we looking at home ownership and preserving the homeowners that are already in the community as well.
I think one of the things you mentioned is so vital, and frankly, in my community, we're talking about those very things. What do people in the community want the community to look like? And so they can make a definition, but the thing is how to get that to happen, whether it be through the developers or the elected officials or the community boards or whatever.
I think the perfect approach is to educate the community on the land use process. I think that's the main thing that we need to do. And I think DCP, the Department of City Planning, was doing that during the City of Yes proposal. But after educating them,
after they got the vote,
after educating them, I think it's really, really important. In the perfect world, we would have neighborhood plans within each council district. It's something that's a very ambitious plan, but it will be something that will push a lot of community boards and a lot of communities to buy into bringing in more density within their community.
I want to ask you both this question. I thought of it when I had both said, wow, look who's coming here. There is this idea, we're talking about racial history and understanding racial history, of painting everything with one paintbrush. Are your districts different? What's the difference between your district and your? We'll let you.
Our districts are totally different.
I want to hear, and I think it's really important
Yeah.
to say that, because people say, okay, 2 black council members, you know, in the districts, or the, even though many of the things you agree on, we understand. But let's talk about the differences. We just got about 2.5 minutes. Okay.
My district is super dense.
Dense.
We have a lot of buildings. We are the center of the urban
This
hub.
is the Yankee Stadium
we have
area,
Yankee
Highbridge,
Stadium,
yeah.
Highbridge.
Right.
I think one of the things we do have similar is around the lack of transportation. But we are a food desert. We don't have a lot of options around food. And my district actually, we actually have more Latinos in my districts than African Americans.
It's interesting. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me. I mean, of course, the borough is diverse. And how would you define your district? Let's say as different.
I would
from
define
what
my
you just said.
district of a lot of homeowners.
There's a really big difference.
A lot of homeowners in my district. Of course, I represent Co-op City, which is the largest retirement community within my district as well. A lot of similarities, though. Even though our district are different with density, like Councilmember Stevens said, transportation is a huge issue in my district.
Certainly your district.
Huge issue. It's almost impossible to get to the city under an hour and 20 minutes. It takes nearly 2 hours for me to get to City Hall each and every time I have to go on there. And I have to go on there a lot because I'm the chair of zoning and franchises. So.
But are you hopeful for the new Metro North?
Yeah,
stops?
we voted the Metro North last year out, so I'm looking forward to that coming.
Listen, and I got a ferry study for my district, so I'm excited. Hopefully I'll have a ferry before I leave.
There you go. Councilmember Stevens, thank you so much. Councilmember Riley,
Thank you, Gary.
Thank
Good
you
luck
so
with the
much.
black print. And let's keep talking about these issues. To me, these are central issues for the borough of the Bronx, and we appreciate you bringing them to us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having us.
Great. We thank everybody. Of course, our producer is Rebecca Hemick. Our director is Will Guzman. Urelis Encarnacion on graphics. Ian Neville is on audio. The editor, of course, she's not here, but she's the editor, is Yessie Diaz. We have a cast of thousands who work with us here in the studio. And to you, too, most important, it's the people of the Bronx. So if the curtain don't fall and the creek don't rise, yes, we'll be back next week. Good